Okay, we're talking 2007. Dave Dinsmore at Biting Dog Publications contacted me. He was going to do a project, a 3-book project. He had recently purchased 3 novellas from 3 different writers. One called Midlisters by Keelan Patrick Burke, another called Disposal by Jeff Strand, and a third called Monkey Love by John Paul Allen. What he wanted me to do was to provide 3 covers and about 5 or 6 interior illustrations each for these novellas, all in a similar style in a single sort of package. The idea I came up with, which got approved, was to do one painting for all 3 covers that would involve an image, in this case eyes, from each of the books. And depending on which book the cover was going to be on, the eye of that one would be highlighted and the other 2 would be sort of in shadow. So Midlisters had the goth girl eye. Disposal had this eye, which has seen better days. And the last one, Monkey Love, had a gorilla eye. Had to do a lot of research on gorillas to get them right. I'm not going to go through describing each of these books myself. I'm just going to read the blurb on the inside dust jacket. This is Midlisters by Keelan Burke. Okay, meet Jason Tennant, a writer of violent horror novels whose career is mired firmly in a maddening swamp of frustration somewhere north of nowhere and south of success. He is a midlister, those thankless souls who labor in the shadows of sometimes better, sometimes luckier writers, and it's starting to take its toll. Meet Kent Gray, wildly popular author of a string of so-called sex-fi novels. He's wealthy, handsome, and the object of Jason Tennant's professional jealousy. Welcome to Baltimore, Maryland, and the Aurora Science Fiction and Horror Convention. Doesn't exist, by the way. He made that up, but you get the idea. Where these 2 men, midlister and bestseller, will meet for the first time, and the midlister motto, better read than dead, will be put to the ultimate test. That's Keelan's book. Now to Jeff's book, Disposal. If you know it's Jeff Strand, you know it's going to be a little bit out of the ordinary. Here we go. Meet Frank, a truly reprehensible human being, an egotistical, sexist, morally vacant scumbag who gets off on committing armed robbery. The kind of creep whose smirk you want to rub off with razor blade laced sandpaper. But when he robs Gretchen at gunpoint, he'll get a lot more than the $12 in her cash register. She makes him an offer he can't refuse. Kill her husband in exchange for sex. The problem is that her husband is hard to kill. Really hard to kill. Like the bastard just won't frickin' die. And finally, Monkey Love. This one's short and sweet. When Professor Sandra Ricks lost her husband in a terrorist bombing, she turned toward her work for salvation. When Richard kept his vow and returned 3 years later, she learned to mix business with pleasure. Sometimes we can't help who we love. Sometimes we can't help what we love. Okay, well, for all 3, like I said, I did a single painting that has this sort of going off into nothingness left edge to leave room for whatever kind of typography the publisher wanted to put on the back cover. What I also did was to do separate little watercolors of the eyes, copying what I had painted over here in acrylic polymer. This is acrylic polymer and ink, by the way. What I had done in acrylic there, I did in watercolor here for the signature sheets. In this case, I got my typical PC copies. And he did these in an edition of 400 numbered copies. He also did it, which I'm going to show you, in a lettered edition of 26 lettered copies, A through Z. Or if you're in England, A through Z. And I got to sign all of them for all 3 books. In mid-listers, the eye looked like that. Goth girl. Nothing there, I should have said PC. Again, it's the same. It was the same image, only this time that's highlighted. And in disposal, that was the watercolor for that eye. I'm going to do a gallery section where I'm just going to show all of the interior illustrations for each of the 3 books. But I wanted to show the lettered editions first, because they're a little bit different. I'm only going to show one, because all 3 are basically the same. Came in a tray case with a recessed rectangle area with this tipped in or glued in. And again, we have the watercolor of the eye for that particular book. Nothing on the spine. Opens the same material, some type of library book binding material. A ribbon to help you get the book out of the box, which I always find very useful. Nothing was changed on the dust jacket, but instead of cloth binding for the numbered edition, here's this faux leather, black leather, with embossed typography in red. And the end papers are this silvered type of paper. And these had an introduction written by another writer, in this case, Jack Ketchum, a famous horror writer, did the intro, so all 3 of us got to sign that one. Okay, there's the intro. Two-page intro. And then the illustrations. I'm curious, I forgot who did the intros for the other 2 books. Let's go see. Okay, let's start with Disposal, the second book. Let's see if there's an intro in this one. Brian Keene did the intro for this one. Cool. I forgot. Wow. J.A. Conrath had something to say. Mark McLaughlin had something to say. Brian Keene had something to say. The great James A. Moore had something to say. Even Christopher Golden had something to say. Michael Arnzen had something to say. Wow. And finally, Mary Janice Davidson had just that little bit to say. We're not done. Gregory Lamberson had some comments. Rick Hodela, the late, wonderful Rick Hodela, had a paragraph. Even James Newman, remember from my previous one where he did the novel The Wicked? He got to say a few words. And rebuttal from the author, Jeff Strand. Screw all y'all. Jeff was living in Florida at the time. Interesting. Monkey Love. Do we have an introduction? Let's see. Yes, T.M. Wright for an intro. Short and sweet. Also, one final thing. I forgot to mention this when I was talking about the numbered edition, but for John Allen's Monkey Love, he also provided a story, an extra story at the end that's not really associated with Monkey Love, but it was just another little horror story called House Guest, which had its own illustration. On to the gallery and the Conundrum. The only other drama that occurred with this project was with the the final illustration for this book. I had originally come up with this idea, we're talking chapter 16 here, of having the action be sort of subtly reflected in a camera lens, but the publisher wanted me to be more direct, so we ended up going with this, which is a scene that shows the main character and her reincarnated husband, who came back in this story as a gorilla.